Dear Esther, the gulls do not land here anymore. I've noticed that this year they seem to shun the place. Maybe it's the depletion of the fishing stock driving them away. Perhaps it's me. When he first landed here, Donnelly wrote that the herds were sickly and their shepherds the lowest of the miserable classes that populate these Hebridean islands. 300 years later, even they have departed.
Welcome to Dear Esther. It's been almost 20 years since the original source mod had been released unto the world and completely changed Pretentious Indie Syndrome. You can tell that it's a source mod because it does garbage so convincingly. Without this, we may never have gotten infra. Something about yogurt. Or as this posh British man might say, yogurt. Sort of a chemical diagram. What could that possibly have to do with anything? Surely that is an anomaly. And there goes a gull. So many of these cans of paint. Cans of paint. Glad I can speak. Before us, two roads diverged. And I chose to take the one that led upwards. This is very pretty. Ooh. Careful of the step, that's a doozy. The environment design. I hasten to say level design.
Donnelly reported the legend of the hermit, a holy man who sought solitude in its most pure form. Allegedly, he rode here from the mainland in a boat without a bottom, so all the creatures of the sea could rise at night to converse with him. How disappointed he must have been with their chatter. Perhaps now, when all that haunts the ocean is the rubbish dumped from the tankers, he'd find more peace. They say he threw his arms wide in a valley on the south side, and the cliff opened up to provide him shelter. They say he died of fever 116 years later. The shepherds left gifts for him at the mouth of the cave, but Donnelly records they never claimed to have seen him. I have visited the cave and I have left my gifts, but like them, I appear to be an unworthy subject of his solitude.
I guess that must be the cave. There's something about the volumetric fog that rolls in. Now, again, I'm not playing the original 2008 source mod. I'm in fact playing the game that came out 10 years after the fact. The remake. Well, this is not going to go well. Looks like we get to be down on the beach either way. I didn't have a boat that came in initially. Huh. Must have been in that decrepit place for a while. Could you consider this a Sonic game because all you do is press forward?
Those islands in the distance, I am sure, are nothing more than relics of another time, sleeping giants, somnambulist gods laid down for a final dreaming. I wash the sand from my lips and grip my wrist ever more tightly. My shaking arms will not support my fading diaries.
Fun fact. The audio logs in this game, and they are audio logs, are randomized. Dear Esther is a roguelike. Is this the Fibonacci sequence? It is. Would you look at that? Also, I can't see any islands off in the distance.
I have found the ship's manifest, crumpled and waterlogged under a stash of paint cans. It tells me that along with this present cargo, there was a large quantity of antacid yogurt bound for the European market. It must have washed out to sea. God knows there are no longer gulls or goats here to eat it.
Huh. Yogurt. Could just walk out into the ocean, but let's not. And the wreck of some kind of car in the background there. Well, oh, there is an island off in the distance. Unfortunately, this is our top speed. I hope you enjoy the contemplative walk. I do quite find this atmosphere engaging. Not the least of which is because this is very similar to where I live. It is authentic in that regards. Now, mind you, I prefer walks among the forest than the beaches. For some reason, the roots don't trip me up quite as much as the rocks do. And I'm on the wrong side of the island to get any kind of sandy beaches. No, the open ocean is not displayed for me. I'm between here and the mainland. Have fun geoguessering that one. All those potential doxers out there. Strange that we end up walking away from a lighthouse. There is always a lighthouse. Towards some other kind of beacon.
A wonderful sight. The moon cresting the junction between the cliff path and the stone circle. It cast a shadow of the ridge across the beach. All the world as if you had signed your name in untidy handwriting.
They do clouds so well in this.
When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
Ominous portents.
I quote directly, "A motley lot with little to recommend them. I have now spent 3 days in their company. That is, I fear, enough for any man not born amongst them. Despite their tedious inclination to quote scripture, they seem to me the most God-forsaken of all the inhabitants of the Outer Isles. Indeed, in this case, the very gravity of that term, forsaken by God, seems to find its very apex. It appears to me that Donnelly, too, found those who wander this shoreline to be adrift from any chance of redemption. Did he include himself in that, I wonder?
The wrecked boat there. Oh, and this is the cave that we must have
Dear
seen.
Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life.
So hearing a radio? Could have sworn.
I find myself increasingly unable to find that point where the hermit ends and Paul and I begin. We are woven into a sodden blanket, stuffed into the bottom of a boat to stop the leak and hold back the ocean. My neck aches from staring up at the aerial. It mirrors the dull throb in my gut where I am sure I've begun to form another stone. In my dreams, it forms into a perfect representation of Lot's wife, head over her shoulder, staring along the motorway at the approaching traffic in a vacuum of fatalistic calm.
I think there's a capacitor in your amoeba. Chemical diagrams seem to sprout antlers. Or become trees. Also, allusions to Saul of Tarsus and of Lot's wife and the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Pillars of salt. We saw pillars up there. Let's make one out right now. This simple piano track I have heard in countless video essays, and I can't believe I forgot that it was from Dear Esther. We're just going to enjoy the music and the peaceful walk.
The vegetation here has fossilized from the roots up. To think they once grazed animals here, the remnants of occupation being evidence to that. It is all sick to death. The water is too polluted for the fish, the sky is too thin for the birds, and the soil is cut with the bones of hermits and shepherds. I've heard it said that human ashes make great fertilizer, that we could sow a forest from all that is left of your hips and ribcage, with enough left over to thicken the air and repopulate the bay.
You know, look at all these pillars. There's really strong evocative turns of phrase that the narrator tends to use. Whoop, that's a bit more than I would like. Oh, I was down there. That's the wreckage. And sometimes you just want to hear the wind and watch the 2D plants sway. I don't think I'm making it up that hill. I'm going to instead go around. Is this the early morning or is this the late evening? It's got a bit of that golden hour feel to it, you know? Well, this looks like a classic video game point of no return.